So today, I'm joined by Beatrice Chuan and Charlie Chung of NovoEd. And Charlie, could you please introduce our speaker and tell us a little bit more about Beatrice and the topic that we have planned today?
Yes, thank you, Kevin. And hello, everyone. We're thrilled at NovoEd to be partnering with Future Workplace and CEMEX to bring this webinar to you. Just a few words about NovoEd. We provide a digital learning platform built for developing high-value skills through real learning. Our platform enables the development, curation, and delivery of engaging learning experiences that build the skills that matter most to organizations and modern learners. Since our founding at Stanford close to 7 years ago, millions of adult learners have developed their skills using NovoEd's platform, incorporating peer feedback, coaching and mentorship, and team-based projects. We're grateful for our partnership with CEMEX and deeply impressed with how they're creating a digital transformation to accelerate the capabilities of their workforce and bring their organization into the digital age. Our focus today is to show how CEMEX is transforming and renewing its culture through a strong commitment to diversity and inclusion. So let me go ahead and introduce our speaker, Beatrice Tumoin. Beatrice is the Global Planning and Development Director for CEMEX. An entrepreneur early in her career, Beatrice transitioned into corporate life in marketing and sales, international procurement, and consulting. 15 years ago, she found in CEMEX her passion for talent development and began her journey in human resources. Today, she continues that journey to learn about and explore options to ensure that CEMEX employees find a positive and stimulating work environment in all the geographies in which it operates. Married to Antonio, Beatrice is the mom of Rodrigo and Federico, who fill her days with joy and surprises and motivate her to continue working to build a better future inside and, fortunately for many of us, outside of CEMEX. With that, I'll hand it over to Beatrice.
Thank you, Charlie, and thanks to Future Workplace for inviting me to be here with you guys today. I am very proud to represent CEMEX and to share a little bit of the story of our company and the journey we've begun on diversity and inclusion. So it is likely that many of you have not heard about CEMEX, but that you're actually walking on sidewalks or sitting in buildings that have our products embedded in them, as we are one of the top cement producers in the world, and one of the largest ready-mix concrete companies also, mostly in the US, but also around the world. As you can see in the slide, our company is quite large. We operate mostly in 3 businesses: cement, ready-mix, and aggregates, and have around 42,000 people around the world working for us. It's just that you get a sense of how distributed we are. You could think of every plant, cement, or ready-mix as a work center. And that is how far spread we are. We have sites where we have as many as 300 people working together, and then very small sites where we have 5, maybe, people operating a small ready-mix plant. Our business, even though it may sound, very traditional, it is a basic industry, but has always distinguished itself, CEMEX, as a company for the quality of innovation and the quality of talent that we have within our organization and our industry. It has, we've been consistently recognized by these 2 things. We always try to stay at the cutting edge of cement, of course, production and research technology, but also in terms of the ways we work and, just overall strategy and technology. Lately, in these past couple of years, we have begun also a digital transformation that I would say accelerates us into the future of the workplace. It gives us a very real sense of how the world is changing and how we as a company need to evolve and change. If we can go to the next slide, I would like to share with you guys how distributed we are in the world and how that makes us diverse by nature. I mean, just the fact of us operating in over 20 countries and having small trading offices in up to 50 gives us a footprint that, without much effort, besides, the great effort of acquiring and growing and integrating these companies, we are naturally culturally diverse. We are naturally, geographically distributed. Our industry is quite traditional, so we do have some challenges in some aspects that we will discuss further. But overall, we have a very wide base of talent that represents cultures, religions, and many other things around the world. For CEMEX, I would say that people are a priority. You can see on the right the tenets that hold us together as a company. And you can see there in the first place, people as our number one asset. And I know that this could sound like a cliche, and many companies do that. No, they of course always state and reinforce that people are our main asset. But we actually really believe and live that reality. We try to do our best to get the best talent, not in the industry, but we actually fight for the best talent in countries like Mexico, where we are a top employer, and of course, in every geography we operate. It is true that we have access to top talent or more access to top talent in certain places of the world, but we generally target talent that could be hired by consulting firms, that could be hired by investment banks. We are trying to really bring in thought leaders to work for us that have the potential to grow and develop within and with the company. In the same way that we focus internally on people, we of course focus on our customers. So in the past, also around 8 years, we have done a major effort to move our strategy from growing through acquisition into growing organically by improving the service we provide in every geography we operate, in becoming the top choice in building solutions for our customers, and in providing the easier interface. So that is why we are currently working so hard in our digital transformation, because we want to make sure that we are there for our customers everywhere, every time, and very easily accessible. So we've developed some platforms for that. So I just wanted to give you a high-level view of who CEMEX is, but what I would like to ask, as the topic of our conversations is around diversity, where you guys are there. So if you guys, Kevin, could help me with the poll.
Sure. So you're going to see on the right side of your screen, a poll should have popped up with 4 options on it that Beatrice really wanted to put out to you. So just pick one of the options, and really it ranges from we're really doing nothing at all to there's a complete full-blown strategy in place, and we should be on your next webinar talking about our amazing D&I strategy. So where are you folks? And that will just help Beatrice. And the results, Beatrice, will pop up on the screen here. This is pretty interesting. It's this notion of D&I as a business strategy, and I know you're going to talk about this later, but has been bubbling up as a higher and higher level strategy. It used to be strategy number 11, then strategy number 9, and then it's been moving up and up in people's strategic areas. So let's see here. So we have here the results, and frankly, 1 in 3 people had a full-blown strategy in place. Is that surprising to you, Beatrice?
Well, more than surprising, interesting, Kevin. So there's maybe some others in the webinar that should be here talking with me, if not to me. But I truly believe that each company is very unique, and the sharing of our journeys makes our strategy stronger. So I would advocate for people to be participating and sharing, what they're doing so that we can all learn not only from the CEMEX example, but from others in the call.
Well, I think also what's exciting here is right audience at the right time. About half of our attendees today actually do not have D&I as a priority, or they're just starting to prioritize D&I as a priority. So I think in the next 45 minutes, you're going to hear some really compelling rationale and tips and techniques from Beatrice on how she has positioned a D&I as a priority and what some of those practices are that made D&I particularly sticky as a priority with senior leaders. So strap back in, listen up, and Beatrice has got some great insights to share from us.
Thank you for that, Kevin. So it's interesting to see where each of you are in the journey. As I said, I think there's a lot of value in sharing where each of one is at, and mostly sharing on our challenges, because we talk about diversity and it's a very broad topic. And I think one of the most important things is to make sure that we clarify, what we are talking about and where we are focusing as a company. So I shared before with you guys that we are naturally diverse given our footprint, but we actually have some very strong challenges in terms of making the most of that diversity, of the markets we operate in. And I, like a couple of years ago, started talking about this with Fernando Gonzalez, our CEO, and we decided to focus, as the topic of diversity is so broad, we decided to focus on what was most urgent for us. And that, first of all, meant taking advantage or full advantage of our geographical dispersion and the variety of nationalities that we have working within CEMEX, and making sure that we actually have representation of all of the people that come from around the world in senior and top management roles. Because of the nature of our operations and our path to growth, we have mostly a Latin-based management. And that sometimes limits, I would say, the visibility and understanding, applicability even of some of our strategic choices in some markets. We also discussed, and I would say that this was a very interesting conversation and a great challenge, the topic of gender. And we basically, started talking about it, limiting it only to men and women, to gender at birth. We know that there's a wide diversity of considerations that we could have around gender, but just to begin with, we wanted to make sure that we at least abided by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals objective and made sure that we made space and created, the appropriate context for women to grow in organizations. As I shared with you before, we are in a very traditional industry, and that is widely male-dominated, at least from the operational standpoint. And we are trying very hard to grow the representation of women in all management roles and across all of our business areas. We do see better balances in staff roles, but still have major challenges with women in sales roles and in operations roles. And this is funny in a way, because when we look at our customer base, we see that within the industry there is significant representation of women as business owners. The business that buy from CEMEX, the customers of CEMEX, are actually women. So I think that there is space for us to do better in making sure that we reflect that trend internally. And then finally, the third area of focus has to do with creating the right opportunities for the mix of generations that we have within the company. As you all know, in general, populations are aging, and as we, continually listen, millennials and the next generation, Generation Z, present a series of challenges in terms of attracting and retaining mostly this generation. So we are focusing on making sure that we have the right balance, generational balance. We are mostly concerned with the continuity of our operations and the leadership pipeline there. So today we see, over-representation of people in Generation X. They're widely spread across all roles, and we want to make sure that we begin integrating younger people into middle management roles so that we don't have, mass retirements and then end up with no people to replace them. Our business requires for talent to grow internally. It, of course, always opens space to bring people from the outside at specific levels in the organization, but we really do need, by the time people reach senior management, for people to have significant experience and tenure within the industry. So we're working hard on that. And as I said, we needed to start somewhere. I know that we still need to integrate other topics like disabilities and other elements that could be brought into the diversity umbrella. But for now, we want to make sure that we create the conditions for these three elements to grow. And we are sure that by devising a series of strategies and programs, we will create opportunity not only for these three specific segments of the population, but for broader ones to benefit from. So if we could move to the next slide, what I would like to share with you guys is the reason that we are doing this. And the reason is that we, first of all, acknowledge that our people are our main competitive advantage. We realized even before, all of this high war for talent, that the people that work for this company are the ones that have really propelled it to success. CEMEX started as a Mexican local company here in Monterrey 120 years ago, and in the 90s started aggressively growing through acquisition. And the group of people who drove that growth were really powerful in different senses. No? They had great intellectual horsepower. They had the will and the determination to grow. They were ready with the knowledge and expertise they needed to drive and to grow the business in geographies where it was not natural for us to grow. And we have experienced the value that having the right talent in the right place at the right time has. So what we want right now, that we are such a big company, is to make sure that we extract full value from our talent base and that we become an exciting place to work where people want to participate in our business. We do struggle to create meaningful and fulfilling work at every level in every geography, but it is our commitment to our people to do so. It is also a strong commitment for us to make sure that they live in an environment where they can develop trusting relationships. We believe that trust is basically at the foundation of diversity, because we need to make sure that the conditions are created for people to trust each other, no matter the background, no matter the gender or anything that could get in the way. And then finally, as innovation has also been one of the things that characterizes us or differentiates us, I should say, from other competitors, making sure that we continue to foster this innovation and grow it by providing psychologically safe environments for our people to participate, to challenge the status quo, to open spaces to create new proposals, new value offerings for our customers. And I believe that, by focusing our diversity and inclusion program in these three things, we establish a roadmap of growth and also of connection from business leaders to our intent. So if you could move ahead in the presentation, I would like to share with all of you our model. We work towards a very structured model, and I'm showing here in the slide. And I would also like to share some of the things that we are doing around each element. So our model has 5 elements, and the first one being performance management. So it is very important for us to make sure that we create the visibility around the audiences. We want to make sure that we deliberately grow, and having the information ready, the data ready to understand not only how many we have where, but actually what drives behavior, what drives retention, what it motivates people, what creates a delightful experience that they want to connect to. So we don't only leverage the traditional demographic metrics, we're also incorporating a workforce experience survey, an ENPS measure, so that we can understand and drive attraction and retention everywhere. We try to be very, I would say, structured with these efforts, and we always leverage global platforms and processes to ensure this. So our operation, I actually forgot to say, I'm sorry, lives by one very important value, working as one CEMEX. So that means that all of the things that are available for a person in Mexico should be available and ready to access by another person in Egypt or in the Philippines. And that, of course, presents its challenges as we operate in many different legal and labor contexts. But we do, we stretch in a way that our employees are all given the same opportunities to participate and express their opinions, desires, and needs. So that around creating visibility, we also make sure in performance management that we have a clear benchmark or reference, that we should abide by. So we are working very closely to the United Nations, leveraging the Sustainable Development Goals to make sure that we are driving not only for the benefit of inclusion, not only for the benefit of CEMEX, but actually in alignment to a broader, bigger effort that will make the world a better place to live. And that is something that's very important for us as the purpose of our company is building a better future. And then finally, and of course not less important, I would say even more important, is making sure that top management has visibility around these issues. So we have structured quarterly meetings with our CEO to make sure that he's informed, that he has the visibility and is able to also share his views and ideas around diversity and inclusion. We have learned that these forums are very valuable in terms of learning. He learns, we learn, he has the opportunity to shape, we have the opportunity to incorporate what's relevant for business strategy, so this makes it a forum that creates a lot of value. We have also shared this program and some of the results we've gotten from it with our board. We have a committee in our board that actually focuses on diversity and inclusion, and we also share, not as frequently as we do with Fernando, but at least once a year, we sit down with this small committee in our board to also exchange ideas to present the intent and the results of our program. So this is a very important element. And then we have in the second element, all the policies and processes. And I have to be very honest, this is an element of the model that's very important for me. Creating the structural mechanisms that ensure that we retain people in these audiences is critical for any effort. So it would be very easy for us to just hire, let's say, more women, or just promote people from Africa with greater frequency. We could do that. I could, do that. But then why do it if they don't have the conditions to thrive? So instead of just doing that blindly, what we have decided is to take a step back and make sure that we structure the company for success. So we are creating First of all, a common understanding of what we mean by diversity. And we have built a policy that is published in all of our business units. And believe me, this represents a big challenge, because we, as I said, operate in geographies where religion gets in the way, where local practices and labor get in the way. So arriving to a shared understanding and commitment towards diversity and inclusion has been quite a challenge. And then we're also working on making sure that all of our people in general, but mostly geared towards enabling these segments that we're focused on, have the opportunity to have flexible work schedules and the opportunity to take leaves, family leaves, maternity leave, paternity leave, and other resources that we put forward so that people can integrate work and life in a better way. We know that this is critical for some very specific segments of our population, particularly in countries where we still have very traditional sociocultural environments. For example, Mexico and some countries in Latin America that have very low percentages of women participating in the workforce because of the deeply, held belief that women should stay at home with the children. We need to create the opportunity through these kinds of policies to give them flexibility and to make sure that we capture and expand the impact of this potential, again, within CEMEX, but also in the economy of the countries that we operate now. I don't want to go too deep into Mexico, but just bringing in the women who graduate from college would have a huge impact in our economy. And then finally, even though we, as I said, try to create the space and the policies so that people can have access, we also have to have this sort of the compliance lever. So we have embedded human rights, diversity and inclusion, and some very specific topics around workplace harassment in our code of ethics. This code of ethics is, of course, available and covers all of our employees. We just launched a commitment campaign early this year, and we've reached almost 20,000 employees that are online, plus the rest of our people that we distribute physically. And we make it a very important priority from a value standpoint, from what defines us as a company, to make sure that there is respect and positive interactions, productive interactions within our workforce. And then we also have the resource of what we call ethos line, and this is a reporting line. So any infractions against our code of ethics can be reported and are or will be investigated thoroughly. We haven't, unfortunately, seen a increase of reports around workplace harassment. A lot of them place in remote sites, but we have made a very strong commitment to making sure that we look closely into them and that we take aggressive action, and of course fair and objective, but immediate and aggressive action in case it's needed. Another of the elements is all of the programs, learning programs, and exchange programs that we create towards fostering diversity. So here we have a bunch of stuff around the leadership development programs. We make sure that we integrate the concept of diversity very deeply within them. We have to leverage technology in order to reach our very widespread workforce, and that is why we leverage tools like NovoEd. And I will go, a lot deeper into talking to you guys about how to leverage technology to spread the word, because it's very important. Also, in terms of programs, we have decided to take, very measured steps towards creating and fostering diversity, starting with unconscious bias. So the first step, of course, is awareness, and this is one of the pillars of our diversity and inclusion strategy. And then I leave for last my favorite, that's at the top of the list, the Coaching for Life events program. This program has been designed, of course, following on, the coaching practices we all know, but has been designed for specific moments in the journey of different people where they may feel the need to quit or to leave the company. And we have found that by helping them through these transitions most of the time, for example, having a first kid or being assigned to an international job, things that are very critical and disruptive in the life of people, if managed correctly by the person themselves and with someone who guides them through the process, can raise the levels of retention and, I would say, even success, at least from an international assignment standpoint. One of our strategies from a talent perspective is to grow people across business units so that we can have senior managers that have a systemic view of CEMEX. But it's sometimes not easy when you have to move to a country where you are the only person from your church there, or you are the only person who speaks a specific language. We had, back when Hungary was part of our portfolio, we had a very hard time placing people in Hungary because, the language makes it very hard to communicate and express yourself and guide an operation. Then moving on to step number 4 or element number 4 in our model, we deliberately create awareness around our program. So by interventions like this one and other interventions we do in different forums, we begin creating a sense of CEMEX being a diverse company. And this is important because it is a statement of our commitment. Making public statements of this commitment is important for the company and holds us accountable to delivering results on it. And it's very important for our people internally to see that we are making that commitment not only, within the family, because there's always space there, to take it seriously or not so much. But when we go out there and make public statements around diversity and inclusion, and engage in conversations in UN forums or in consulting forums or in HR forums, that gives it a totally different level of credibility. And finally, another way that we create awareness internally, and I think it's also very interesting, is through the leadership stories of some of the people that represent these segments of the population. So by creating visibility on women who are now senior managers and having them share their journey with the company, the moments where they had, doubts, successes, failures, and other events happening to them, and how they solved and how they decided to remain with the company, have proven extraordinarily powerful overall. We are doing also a very strong work on leadership stories by bringing in people from other cultures that are not as mobile as some of our executives are, so that we can begin creating curiosity and empathy between people from different cultural backgrounds. And then finally, we definitely rely on partnerships to drive this forward. We are mentioning here just one of those partnerships. I've mentioned the UN quite a lot, but we also partner with specific consulting firms and with other companies. I highlighted here McKinsey because we work with them on building the Women Matters survey for the first time in Mexico last year. They have done this survey in other countries, and it is actually available for the US if most of you are US-based, with very interesting results and with tragic results for Mexico. It just makes us even more committed to the cause, understanding that our flagship operation lives in a social cultural context that is not diverse by nature at all. So it gives CEMEX a responsibility of creating visibility of the talent that we have worldwide and providing options and opportunities for everyone to grow in this company. So I've talked a lot by now. So I would like to hear a little bit from you, and I think we have another poll, Kevin.
Certainly. Let's introduce the poll there if we just go forward. Essentially, the challenges that your company has regarding diversity and inclusion, and you'll see on the poll here some choices on overcoming some of those challenges. And one, this really is a number of the different challenges that people have often raised to us. So just pick one of these challenges, and we'll see then what Beatrice identified as the key challenge that she had to overcome at CEMEX. Because these initiatives don't obviously start by themselves. And while you're doing that, Beatrice, and while folks are tackling their answer there, why was this the year that this D&I strategy sort of bubbled up to be significant enough for a global rollout and to be funding that at that level? Why this year versus any other year?
Thanks for the question, Kevin. So we have, ever since we started growing by acquisition, it had the challenge of diversity in trying to make sure that we integrated the cultures, that we created a shared company culture. So I think that in a way, this became sort of part of our operating model, I would say, through the acquisition years from the early 90s to the until about 2008, I think, that we did our last acquisition. But we had never thought about it in a structured way and more broadly than just integrating new cultures. So we started working on this as corporate social responsibility and sustainability became also priorities for the company 5 years ago. Our CEO has a very, deep commitment with building a better future for everyone, actually. And this topic began to take greater shape when he started realizing that there was like a block of people who thought pretty much the same about the future of the company, and he wanted to bring in a different perspective, new voices, better representation from some of the business units that are a little bit more remote and don't have representation in the executive committee. He started traveling around. Fernando became CEO in 2015, I think. I don't want to be wrong. If not, I'm going to say 15. And then my team here will correct me. But as soon as he came to the position, he started traveling around, and I guess that he, in seeing all of the people everywhere and listening to them, created a very intimate commitment with giving space to those voices at higher level in the organization.
Right. And just a second question. Let's go off of the survey results here. The top response was really around the lack of clarity in the potential value of D&I. So how did you manage to convey and reinforce the clarity on the value of D&I at CEMEX this year? What made the difference?
So as I shared with you guys earlier, we started our digital transformation back in 2016, and this journey of digital transformation has faced us with very important challenges from a talent perspective, from a people strategy perspective, and we realized that most definitely what had made us successful in the past will not be the key to unlocking value in the future. The business context has shifted significantly. The industry has consolidated a lot, and we need to come up with new ideas and new, revenue streams, new avenues of growth. And in thinking of those and taking a look into the organization, we realized that we don't have the capabilities. We didn't have the capabilities we needed to create an alternative path for the company. And this is when the issue of diversity actually came in. And that is why it becomes very significant, because if we are a company committed to innovation and the creation of new ideas and new revenue streams, we need to bring in that capability through opening spaces for the voice of everyone to, and not just the same block of people deciding, using references of the past and what is successful for them. And we need also some alternative thinking, new perspectives, deeper understanding of some of our markets. So it has become, I would say, a strategic enabler for us. Now, it's, we have worked from that statement of we need to bring in new thinking, and then we came in as HR and helped them articulate what that meant. And through data, help them focus on the specific segments that could actually make a difference and activate the organization. And it has become, it's not a soft thing, it is a very firm commitment, and as I said, seen as an enabler of strategy.
Fantastic. No, and I think that's a super thing to emphasize to everybody, and it is, and I will underline that in a fundamental enabler for strategy. And there was a key question here. Somebody had talked about innovation is a value for business. So it sounds like you're trying to sell diversity as an asset that will bring profit or enable the business or enable innovation. Is that true?
Absolutely. So we, for one, want to make sure that we are leaders in every market in many different senses, not just in sales, and driving the effort of diversity and inclusion in our industry is one of the commitments that our CEO has made. And we truly believe, and this actually I think is powerful because it emerges from the true, from a true feeling of bringing in different, people that are different from our traditional executives, and that has helped us, push the conversation forward in a lot of forums.
What do you think the most noticeable value or impact of having a more diverse workforce has been to CEMEX in particular?
So I mentioned before that we, after growing by acquisition for many years, as the dynamics of the industry changed, we needed to become more customer-centric. And it is when you take a look at your customers that you understand even more the value of diversity, because our customers are diverse by nature. And this is true not only in our industry, but in many industries. And for us to understand our customer deeply, we need to have translators within the company. So we need people that are participating in defining and devising strategy that understand the French, that understand the Muslim community, that understand the women that are our customers, that understand a series of constituencies that when you segment your customer base, you can discover, and then you look inside and see that you don't have a natural interface with them because you don't even bring in that thinking from our internal base. So that I would say by focusing in our customers, understanding them, and thinking about how to serve them better, we have been able to mobilize the diversity strategy.
Fantastic. Okay, I'll let you proceed with your final 4 slides here. Thank you, Beatrice.
Thank you. So what I wanted to share, if you want to move forward, is how we think about building this capability. Because in the end, we think of diversity and inclusion not as a strategy, not as a program, but as a capability for the company. And in building capability at CEMEX, we look at different elements. Now, we look, of course, at training, but then also in processes, technology, policies, and other elements. And what I will do is I will use the example of learning, as I want to talk about learning more deeply in the coming slides, and how we have embedded the concept of diversity and inclusion within all of our learning offerings. So first of all, even though we do have an offering that has been designed exclusively for the purpose of fostering diversity and inclusion, we embed the concept in every program, particularly in the high potential programs, and take advantage of how we structure learning to make sure that we begin building more openness and more awareness on diversity. So one of our most important principles in learning is to have leaders as teachers within our programs. So we make sure that every learning experience that we design brings in internal leaders to talk. And in preparing them for their interventions, we make sure that they understand that they are talking to a very broad base of people that may not be alike them in, how they see the world, what they think, their background, their language. So we need to make sure that they understand this so that they can connect better to the audience. And in doing this, without necessarily mentioning specific segments or, even saying diversity and inclusion in the conversation, we begin preparing them to be global executives and to address all of the people that we have within the company, and not just, talk to the people that he imagines, rather than the full broad base. So we, with top management, do a lot of one-on-one work. They usually come in to residential-based programs, in-person programs, share their leadership stories. A lot of our leaders have grown, in the acquisition years, so they have traveled from one geography to another. I was just in a program in Prague 2 weeks ago, and our regional president for Europe came in, and he's lived in Mexico, the Philippines, in different places in Mexico, actually, the north, the south, and in the Philippines, and in Spain, and in Egypt. So just by sharing their stories, they present a very naturally diverse company, and they talk about the challenges they faced and the similarities they found between audiences. So we, of course, in preparing them, we shape the story with them and push them to go in that direction. We're also doing a very deliberate work with women and making sure, if you remember the first slides I showed, we have, as little as 10% representation in top management from women. So even when we don't like it, and I have to say that for myself, I really don't, it's hard work for me, to be traveling to one program and the other, and, to be ready to share my story and balance all of the work and family that I have back here in Monterrey. But we've made it a point to have women represent leadership in these programs. And it begins creating references and new models as to how the CEMEX leader looks. With senior management, we continue to work. Maybe we prepare them less, I would say, intensively, or with less of a high touch than the, top management. But we always have sessions with them where we as I said before, share the context of the company, the importance of their role as leaders, how people look up to them. We make sure that we enable them with clarity on the values that we want them to promote and role model. And then finally, for middle management and the broader base of white-collar employees, what we do is we make sure we reach them through our CEMEX University platform that's powered by NovoEd. We make sure that there is common understanding of what we mean by, in this case, diversity and inclusion, but as I said, it is mostly embedded in all programs, so that people can begin, learning through repetition. They go into a specific learning experience and find leaders from different backgrounds, different cultures. They go through a different learning experience, and there is an explicit comment around the need for mentoring women, and then they go to another, and they hear the value of leveraging talent worldwide to make better choices, etc. So we, through repetition, make sure that everyone is aware of this. And then, obviously, our high potentials.
So just as we're approaching our top of the hour here, let me just jump forward, Kevin Solar, if you could, to just the final slide there with the three takeaways, and just have you summarize. Yes, this is perfect. And just have you, Beatrice, just summarize what it is that you want this audience to just take away as a result of all of the experience that you've had with this D&I program.
Absolutely. So I would say that the recommendation is very simple. Make sure that diversity inclusion is embedded in talent management strategy, not, an island. Make sure that your leaders are accountable for it. This is not the job of HR. This is the job of every leader to be inclusive and to make sure that their teams are built in that way. And finally, involve the full organization. We have leveraged social learning to do that, and we have found enormous value in doing so. And the support of NovoEd in this sense has been invaluable, I would say, in activating the organization towards this topic.
Fantastic. Well, Beatrice, I just wanted to thank you, Beatrice Tuan, for sharing your insights and fostering a diversity mindset at CEMEX. I mean, this is just a very different take than what I had initially expected you would talk about, and I think it's very expansive. So in your role as a global planning and development leader, you clearly have been really instrumental in guiding CEMEX and promoting this notion of an inclusive online learning experience to adopt D&I as a strategic priority. And I think that's a big lesson for us all, is that this can be conveyed and promoted online. It doesn't have to involve getting everybody in a room and bringing everybody through these exercises. And you've shown us a sense of how to do that, and how you made creating a sense of connection and belonging a key pillar in the execution of the D&I strategy at CEMEX. I think that is fundamentally the essence of it here. And the essence of D&I is, do I feel that I belong? And Charlie Chung from NovoEd, thank you for your support of this webinar and encouraging Beatrice to share her insights and realizing that this really has some global applicability for our audience. And for all of those who are...
Thank you both. Yeah, thank you for hosting the webinar, Kevin. We appreciate it.
Yes. And any final thoughts from you?
No, I'd like to also thank the audience for attending. We hope that you're inspired and go out and do similar and even greater things yourselves. And thank you, Beatrice, and your team for sharing your story with us.
Fantastic. And for those, yeah, I think if we could ask for a round of applause on a webinar, we would, and we'd open up all the mics so you could hear that positive reinforcement for certainly for those 50% that really didn't know what this was all about. I think their knowledge gap has been closed. And for those that thought they knew what it was about, you added a very new perspective and a broader perspective. So for those of you that are attending our Future Workplace Summit next month at Info in New York City, you will have the opportunity to meet NovoEd again there. Our webinar is now concluded, and thank you all for participating. Recordings will be provided by the end of the week. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.